My family and I left Chuchanpur when I was 10 years old. This was in 1997. Many of you might not have been born. And we left because of the Zomi cookie clash. So in a sense, that the effect of communal misunderstandings or inter-ethnic violence do affect all of us, personally, right, at the family level, at the personal level, and we had to leave. So we moved to Shillong, and that's where I did my education, and then from there moved to other cities. I've been to Bangalore, then Hyderabad, New Delhi. Then for a little bit, then a year I was in London, then came back to Delhi. Then I was in Sikkim, then back Shillong. Then, so I've been all over. But all through these journeys and experiences in other places and cities, although I enjoyed every bit of them, this place, the picture in front of you, was something that always pulls me back. And it pulled me back in such a way that it was almost difficult to explain even to friends coming from the same town. Sometimes a bit embarrassing to even tell even your closest friends, even your family, because they would think you're crazy. At a time when everybody wanted to leave, all that I was thinking was, what can we do in this town? How can we collectively work for this town, for the betterment of this town, for the community and all of that? So, but then certain things in you don't die. And that's what I really want to touch upon when, to listen to educators on the ground, because there could be students in your school, in your classroom, in your community, who have some interest or a keen passion for something or the other, and most of the times our socioeconomic conditions or opportunities might not be there. Socioeconomic conditions might not be the best to promote and harness those talents, but it would be great if we can identify those and connect them with the right sponsors or right institutions, so that they can really make use and do something with it. So yes, back to my story. So this town holds a special place in my heart, and it's the extension. So whatever I do is an extension of that deep love I think, or I claim to have for this place and community. So yeah, let me just make it smaller. Yeah. So the flow of today's introduction talk session would be somewhat like this: a brief introduction about myself, which I just completed or half completed. Then a little bit on leadership and community, the collective futures that we want to build, the role of educators there, that is on building the collective futures, and what can we do as educators, as people who are keen on doing something for the community. One second, my phone, my laptop seems to. Yeah. Yes, so just to continue on my introduction, I've put it here: start somewhere, start anywhere. So in 2013, after I taught at St. Joseph's Bangalore, I taught for a year. Two friends and I took on a road trip and came to Lamka, and we did a social experiment then in 2013. And I'm sharing this because the learnings from there really intrigued us, and till today, I think it captures what as a community we prioritize, what as a community we give importance to, and how we are moving ahead. In 2013, we conducted this social experiment of a sort. We went to 8 schools in and around Chuchanpur town. 7 schools and 1 college, Rayburn. We went to these schools and colleges, and we interacted with the class 10 students, 9 and 10 students, yes, sorry. And we gave them 2 tasks. One was, we told them we gave them a piece of paper and said, what are the things that you love most about Lamka? Or what is your ideal Lamka? What is your dream Lamka, right? So they're supposed to draw, right? They're supposed to draw with their pencils and pens. And the second paper we gave them, we instructed them to write down the things, very bluntly, we told them, write down the things that are important to you. So 2 tasks. One was to tell them, draw your ideal Lamka, right? The Lamka of your dreams. And the other one, write on a piece of paper in bullet points, 1, 2, 3, what are the things that are important to you? And we didn't give them any context. We just said, let's keep it very vague and let's see how they respond. And we realized that in 2013, a lot of them of the class 9 and 10 students in and around Chuchanpur town were in their drawing. They were drawing, their vision. I mean, their ideal Lamka was, a Lamka with shopping malls, airports, very nice parks, recreational areas, pet shops. Yes, I remember pet shops. And very fascinating, the modern life, the good life that everybody would want. And a lot of the boys were writing actually about this, inter-community conflict. They said they want peace. The girls are not so bothered about those community, angle. But very interestingly, the boys were writing about, Kuki and Zomi and Mar and other things. But others were not really concerned. But we found that in over 60% of the submissions that came, all of them had a helicopter hovering around Chuchanpur town. For some reason, their vision Lamka, their ideal Lamka, or the Lamka of their dreams, the perfect Lamka that they wanted, had a helicopter hovering around town. And we couldn't make sense of it, because what is the place of a helicopter in our imagination or in our community? Why is a helicopter so important, such an important figure in our thinking about progress, about development? But then we kept that, and the week after that, we had a visitor from Germany. He was doing some workshop with one school in town, and we presented those findings to him, and he found it very interesting. He was from Berlin, from Kolkata, but who worked in Berlin, and he said, this is a very interesting, take to it, because look at the difference between an airport or aeroplane and a helicopter. He said, most of the kids in this town wants to leave this town. They want to leave this town in a way a helicopter would take off from your public ground. A helicopter does not need a runway. It doesn't need an airport. You can just leave. In an instant, in 10 minutes, you can leave in a helicopter. In an aeroplane, you need all the security checking. You need an airport. You need so many things. So he said, maybe at a very psychological, at a deeper level, many teenagers are frustrated or not finding motivation in this place, and therefore they're looking for it elsewhere. And they think that as soon as I finish class 10, I'm going to go out. As soon as I finish class 12, I'm going to go out. So this inner urge, inner longing to flee or to leave might be so deeply embedded than we earlier thought it was. So this was our experiment on social experiment on this ideal Lamka. Now, fast forward to 2020, few friends and I set up Highland Group. You must have, some of you must have heard about it. We're trying to build a social enterprise network focusing on livelihoods and education, and see, what kind of local solutions can we come up with using low-cost technology and other forms of innovation. And we also did a lot of work with regard to COVID response, and the USP for us really was COVID response is done by many people, but we rely on people's goodwill, the strength of our community, because we're a very community-based society, and also the power of youth coming together for a cause. So these were some of the examples, that engaging with this community that we have done in the past. And I'm just saying, start somewhere, start anywhere, because you don't need a perfect setting. You don't need a perfect place. Every place on earth, every village, every community is worth developing, improving, and by that same token, wherever we are stationed, wherever we are transferred to, wherever we are working, I think that place can be developed, can be made into a better place than we found earlier. So this is my introduction. So I'm just moving to the next slide. Yeah, so I'll just briefly touch upon the Indo-Myanmar context, because that's where we live in. The place that we are in is obviously, as we all know, along the Indo-Myanmar borderlands, politically very sensitive, ecologically very fragile, and economically pretty backward compared to other places. And we all know in Manipur things are even worse. And yet there's a lot of talk about the promise of the ACTIs. It's been forever that we hear that ACTI is going to come and save all of us. But whatever the case may be, the concerns of our community, mostly economy and education. Economy, because the need to move away from the sustenance, livelihood engagement that we are all a part of, and move to something that is more sustainable and resilient for a community, and seeing education as the best ticket for that, right? So this twin, the twin kind of sisters, right? Economy and education would go hand in hand in this part of the world. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is because as educators in a borderland, we are active stakeholders. That if there's going to be a flourishing trade between India and Myanmar and ASEAN nations, if there's going to be a stable, a peaceful state in Manipur, we are active stakeholders. And as educators, there's an extra responsibility to educate and also to motivate our young students that if we don't buckle up, if we don't, pull up our socks now, it might be too late. And the forces that are working, there's a global capital interest that's coming to the region. The railway is coming. Big businesses will come in the next few decades. And by then, if we are not equipped with a very strong rooted sense of community, of protecting our wildlife and ecology, and also our own traditional rights and institutions, then it's very easy that finding ourselves unprepared for the things that are to come, right? So it is for that reason alone that I would like to emphasize for the educators of Lyzon Friendship School that we're not just teaching students about ABC or algebra or geography, but we're preparing young boys and girls who tomorrow would be taking an active role and playing the role of active stakeholders in this very dynamic and interesting region. Yeah. So on that note, I think we need to see educators, each one of us, as leaders in our community. And educators, I think there's a tendency in the local community to say that, oh, I'm just a teacher. without really knowing or without really realizing that they're the most important pillars of our community and society. So the first idea is to try to reimagine schools as sites of learning, traditional knowledge sharing. And I'm saying this because ever since Christianity came into this part of the world, we have seen a lot of loss in terms of traditional knowledge. Earlier, there used to be a community dormitory where young boys learn. And even for girls, there are traditional institutions and groups, women groups, where we learn skills, and also traditional knowledge is passed down from generation to generation. Now, with all of that disappearing, and with modernity having taken over, there is no institution that could replace that. Our schools are not doing that. Our Sunday schools are not doing that. So there is a need to make schools as a center of learning, not just of the syllabus of Manipur board or CBSE or ICSE, but also of our own traditional knowledge. And the sooner we do that, the better for us, because if we don't do that, we will end up losing all the traditional knowledge that we have. And even if we talk about documentation, there should be a starting point from where we can document, and the school can be the meeting point, which bridges, science, math, and also the traditional understanding, traditional knowledge of the community on various things, on crop cycles, on pest and insecticides. It could be on climate and weather. It could be on soil health. It could be on fishing cycles, anything. So those are valuable traditional knowledge that we have, and that since there is no other institution that we can think of that can play this role, I think educators needs to start, and leaders in education sector needs to start looking at schools as sites of learning and sharing of this kind of knowledge. And the second is on skill development. I think we have a lot of graduates, postgraduates, but very few people who are employable. And this is something that has been said again and again in the community, that we need people who are not just BA, BSc, BCom or masters, but who are skilled, who are employable, who are willing to learn, who are quick to learn, right? So, and if we don't focus on that, we'll churn out a number of class 10 pass this many, class 12 pass this many, but we will not be able to get where we want, because we'll have a huge number of graduates who are not employable. The third is obviously in satisfaction. Educators needs to, I think, there's a huge gap between job satisfaction and what we see in the job market today, even in a small place like Churchandpur. So ideally, we should go for professions that gives us satisfaction, and in a line where we're passionate, deeply passionate about. And as leaders, if you're not satisfied with our work, if you're not passionate enough, it's very easy for the students and the parents and the community to notice it, right? So I think the satisfaction factor, although it's not very tangible, it's a very powerful factor in making us, that's educators, seen as leaders in the community. Technology is becoming a big player. Even right now, we're using technology. For many of us, Zoom was quite new when the pandemic hit us last year, and we were quick to adapt it. But technology also creates new kind of divides. How many families would have more than one mobile phone, or some families might not even have one single mobile phone? So how do we distribute? How do we disseminate knowledge? How do we disseminate learning materials and all of that? And we need to think, I think, more in a more nuanced, in a more complex way. How can we engage with technology so that that nobody's left behind, right? I think even in a classroom, even when there's parents-teachers meeting, or when there's engagement with, let's say, community or church leaders or elders, I think we acknowledge the importance of technology, but at the same time, we'll be sensitive to access to technology, access to bandwidth, and other things that come along with this. As much as we want to reap the harvest of technology for improved learning, I think there's another side to it, and we should always be mindful of that. And collectively, all of this, the impact that we create in the community is immense. And it goes without saying that educators are really leaders in community, and more so in rural communities, because we really, in rural community setting, we cannot think of interventions like education in silo. Independently, we cannot look at education and say, oh, I'm a teacher and I'm meant to teach only this. No, we also have to look at the health of our students. So when a student comes in the morning, a teacher is able to kind of make out if that student has eaten and come, or has somebody skipped breakfast, right? If somebody is very aggressive and violent, the teacher might be able to know or understand where is it coming from. Is it from the family? Is it because of some other factors, external factors, or if some student is anemic, right? A student would be the first to observe and then say, okay, I see symptoms of anemic, and therefore, why can't we go to the public health, health centers, right? Primary health centers. So, in a rural setting, it is impossible to say that I'm only here to teach what is there in the syllabus or what is there for this, or take active part in sports and then it's done. No, it's almost like there's a huge responsibility, more so than in other places, and it is the coming together of all those responsibilities and all the work that educators like you do in rural community that creates this collective impact, which is so needed and inspiring. So I'm just showing you a brief, about it. This is an old data which I picked up from a recent presentation. The numbers looks promising, but looking at our population, and also we all know that this government data and what's there on the ground is quite different, right? So just to give you a sense of what's there on paper. Likewise with health infrastructure, we all know that the existence of health infrastructure is one, but the delivery of health services could be a completely different topic. And I'm only highlighting because as educators, we need to be very aware of our community, the strength of our community, the services available, so that this self-improvement or self-aware is able to help students benefit in more than just the school setting. So what can we do or what must we do as educators in the community in a rural setting? First is, I think, integrate. Obviously, we should integrate, and like I already highlighted, we need to integrate what we know from the community. Being a part of the community while growing up, there's certain things that you know, that you learn, that you pick up, and blend that with the science or with the learning that we have from formal education. If these two are not going together, it's going to be a problem, and it already is. So the arrogance of science is very dangerous. At the same time, traditional knowledge also needs to up its game and say, look, these are a way of handling things in crisis, during crisis or systems like this. So that integration is very important. The second is to innovate. I think we're not innovating enough. Even in a local setting, even in a school, in the community, there are always some very fascinating local solutions that we can come up with. And this need not be heavy, technology driven or machine driven. These are very simple social, community based local solutions. It could be for how to save water in the school, or it could be how to make people come on time, right? How to make people do homework. There's always some local solution or innovation that is lying around that we fail to miss sometimes because we're thinking only of big things, right? Of far away things. So I think we should keep innovating because that's also what makes life interesting. The third is, as educators, simply take leadership role, not even the school, not just in the school, but also in the community. And for that, I think leaders in the community would require a clear direction, why we're doing this. If we're doing an activity at Lyzon Friendship School, we should be clear why we're doing this. If we have a sports day, we should be very clear why we are doing, conducting sports. Is it just for fun, or is it for something more than that? Is it for health and fitness? Is it to build team bonding? What is it, right? I think the direction needs to be very clear. And we also need to mentor and help each other. And likewise, leaders should also, then in the sense there's some expectation from us, right? In terms of being disciplined, consistency. And finally, what we can do is really share. Very simple. A friend recently, we were just discussing, and he said, if there's one thing that would describe our community, it is that we are a community that shares. We are a community that works together. We're a community that share our experiences, our learnings, our issues, problems, and also our aspirations and hope. And it's because we have put this sharing, this whole concept, or the place of sharing, back in the background for too long. We are unable to find ourselves. We are not finding ourselves in our elemental form, right? We feel we are pretentious, or we're trying to be somebody we're not. And at the core of it is that we share. As people from this district, we are a community that shares. Growing up, I'm sure all of you must have had this sharing of your dish, right? Before eating, especially dinner. Whenever a family cooks a very special meal, they would share it to the neighbors. I mean, that's fast disappearing now, especially in the town areas. But at the very root of it, it's the affirmation of a very deep, community bond between members of the community. And I think if we keep sharing not just our problems, but also our aspirations and hopes, I think we will be in the right track, and we will be able to build a community, or contribute to building a community that is quite ready, that is quite alert, that is self-aware, and ready to take on whichever way the wind blows. We should be prepared, we should be ready, and not just be driven by some very career kind of saying we move from here to here, but to say that, look, as active stakeholders of the community in this place, in this state, in this district, and in this region, we know what we're talking about. We know the topography, we know the land, we know the condition that we are in, and we also know what's best for us. And I think that taking that responsibility really at the end of the day is what leadership is all about. And it is on that note, I would encourage all the educators here to join this this line of thinking, and see if there's a possibility of from this very short presentation, if some ideas could germinate, or something that you might be able to apply in your school or in the community. Thank you. That's all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Golan. It was really insightful. I guess I also got to learn quite a few things from your presentation today. So now I would like to open this up to anybody. If you have any questions that you want to ask, or if anything you want to share, anyone, if you want to write it down, you can write it in the chat box, or if you want to directly go ahead and ask a question to Golan, you can do that.
Hello. Pradeep, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, I'll ask one question. Hi, Golan.
Hi. Hello.
I'm Tatang, the founder of Lyzon Friendship School. Okay, I'm very excited and very, very experienced. I experienced a lot from your lecture, that idle Lamka is really a very interesting stories. And as you mentioned here in the idle Lamka, to upgrade or to develop the college level, what is your ideas to develop this? Because many students, especially those who are in 10th, 11th standard, 12th standard, usually wants to go outside the states. So how can we solve this a problem so that the young generations will not go to other states for their further studies?
Yeah,
How can we develop the college level in CCP? This is the question.
Right. Yes. Thanks, Tatang, for that question. I think it's a very tough one, but obviously, the first is to say that we must develop, higher education. Currently, we have a few good colleges, but overcrowded. But more importantly, is technical education, right, or vocational training. Very few of us are taking up courses like BSc Agriculture, horticulture, fishery, forestry, or even law, right? LLB. So most of us are going BCom, BSc Botany, Zoology, or BA Sociology, Political Science, History. I think there needs to be more awareness on the kind of courses that are available. And I think another problem with Chuchanpur is when we talk about higher education. So Chuchanpur has a very high, number of people who are educated. But we are capable, and therefore we usually aim for the top. Whatever, we are a very proud people in that sense. We always go for the top. There's no personal mapping. There's no personal skill assessment. There's like, after BA, I'm going to do UPSC. Simple. That's a top. Nothing else. If I want to do MBA, I want to try IIMs. And some succeed. Most of us don't. And when they don't, they don't like to be somewhere in between. So it's either I get there or I'm just going to sit at home and be unemployed. So contrast that with, let's say, Sikkim. Sikkim has a Sikkim Manipal University, and it produces a huge number of MBA students every year. And they're very smart, they're employable, they help in the local tourism industry, the hospitality industry, and they're also now the same MBA guys are taking up food processing industry. So for us, the guys are going to the very high level, and few succeed, they're doing well, and leaving 97%, not knowing where to swim or which direction to swim. So with that kind of thinking, it's very difficult to even say we'll introduce a technical institute. The technical institute will then, they will say we're not able to provide the best education, therefore we're not getting students, or we're not getting students that are interested. Because when we talk about higher education in Manipur or anywhere, it is linked to jobs. So if we have higher education here, but we don't have the jobs here, then it's going to also be another set of problems that we have. So the dilemma that a place like Chuchanpur faces, and this is why they need to focus on more diversified courses, is since most of the students are going for regular general courses, One, how do we introduce technical courses? Second, how do we make the courses relevant for the local economy, right? The local economy, or at least to the regional economy. If we don't make that link, it will be somewhat like the skill development program of the government, that every skill development institute is doing computer training. So there are thousands of people in Chuchanpur district now who have taken that computer training, but not getting any job out of it. So that situation might also arise, and that is for school level. Yes, it's good. We can teach them all the subjects, but for higher education, it has to be very strategic, and we need to be very clear what courses are we introducing. What is the job market like for this kind of graduates? What kind of tie-up do we have with institutions and also job employers outside of Chuchanpur? I think that homework is very required when we talk about higher education in Chuchanpur.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, anybody else who has a question, or you want to ask something, or you want to discuss something?
Shall I ask one more thing about Indo-Myanmar context? And,
Please.
as an educator, you have mentioned to do some particular things to take step. And Golan, I want to ask you, what will be the first step which we can start with in order to protect or in order to make this Indo-Myanmar context better for Chuchanpur district people?
Okay, yeah, thanks. To that question, I think the first step would be to know ourselves better. And by that, I mean, by saying that it is important to know ourselves better, I mean, even as a community, we know so little about ourselves, about the geography, about the climate, about the potential, about the natural resources. We ourselves don't know. Yeah, so today, if I were to ask not just the teachers here, but anybody randomly in Chuchanpur, if I were to ask what is the literacy rate or the sex ratio of Chuchanpur, I don't think 99% of us would be able to answer that. Or if I were to ask what is the dropout rate in Chuchanpur, right? I think we ourselves don't know about ourselves enough. Or if tomorrow, regarding Indo-Myanmar situation, if somebody asks us, what is the thing, what is the product or the goods that Chuchanpur require most legally from Myanmar, right? We will not be able to answer. We're not able to do a cost-benefit analysis. We're not able to say, let's say something like soap or something like oil or rice. If we import from Myanmar is cheaper than getting it from Andhra Pradesh or Punjab. We just don't know. Or if tomorrow a top government official is to visit Lyzon Friendship School and ask, Lyzon Friendship School is in Singngat, it's on a very important place along the Indo-Myanmar border. And since Behyang Trade Center is going to be coming up in a few years, what is the if they ask Lyzon Friendship School, what is that one thing which the school or the community in that area would benefit from? We don't know. So we know so little about what's happening around us in terms of economy, trade, commerce, and also about geography, environment. If somebody were to ask you, the type of soil that is there in Singngat is, you might know as in a very, in a local way, you might be able to say, oh, this is red soil, black soil, but you don't know what is the pH value. You don't know the scientific, components of soil, right? So we're not. So because of these reasons, we're not able to take full advantage of the opportunities that are in our way. And to really make use of the potential of the Indo-Myanmar, potential, we first have to really digest about ourselves, our history, our local economy, and also the potential of commerce and trade. If we don't do that, somebody is going to do that for us. Somebody is going to lecture us on let's say on the environment of Singngat or on the livelihood opportunities in Singngat, and the people of Singngat not knowing anything about it and just be listening to it, right? So the danger is there, and I think that's the first step that's required.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, anybody else has any questions before we would want to wrap up the session by 4:45? So we have 5-10 minutes for questions if anybody would like to ask anything.
Hi Golan, it's Isha this side. Thank you very much for such an insightful session. Thank you, Sunbird, for organizing such an interesting webinar session. So I just wanted to know more on this. So I have always been born and brought up in Delhi, and I feel I have got a lot of opportunities to grow here, but yet the culture has been to ensure that we get into a job market, or we orient ourselves towards, say, get into a race of say UPSC or MBA, or become BCom, or get into jobs only. So how can we access the traditional knowledge and the indigenous knowledge that people in Northeast have? Because we're not exposed to that, and we are mostly, at least in my case, we are unaware about a lot of, say, as you mentioned, the cultural knowledge, the climatic knowledge, or the indigenous knowledge that people have.
Yeah, thanks, Isha. I don't know how we can access. Even I'm struggling to access the traditional knowledge. I know so little of it. I just know the importance. For instance, at Highland recently, we work with a village, and we're procuring passion fruit because we're making passion fruit squash out of it, right? And we had a meeting with the agriculture officers, the horticulture officers, and also the villagers separately. And while interacting with the local farmers there, they shared things like, if you pluck a passion fruit today, and if you raw pressed it, if you take out the fruit and turn it into squash on the same day, you don't get very good output. But you harvest it today and you keep it for about 4 days, 3 to 4 days, and then you take out the passion fruit, the juice. Then it has a stronger, better aroma, and it yields more juice. So these are things that we don't know. You will not read in textbooks. You will not. No scientist will be able to tell you that. But these are practitioners are telling us, right? So this is something that that are very insightful and needs to be captured somehow. Now, just to contrast this with another example that was that came out from Kohima, and a completely different example, but and this is what ties up, I think, between what we do as let's say as NGOs, and how can we really contribute in a better way. For instance, in Kohima, the women village vendors, sitting in the market in Kohima main market don't have access to toilet. And because they don't have access to toilet, there was a toilet, but it's locked. Nobody knows who locked it. But so they don't have a toilet to use, basically. And because they don't have access to toilet, they drink less water. Because they say, if we drink water, we get the urge to pee, and there's no place to pee. Right? You have to go really far off to go and pee, and then it affects who is going to guard your vegetables. So they drink less water. So that's a community response or a social response to a lack of infrastructure. And they drink less water. And what happens? then a huge number of the village female women vegetable vendors in Kohima market ended up having UTI, right? So they have urinary tract infection, and then the cost of the treatment becomes very high. So what I'm trying to say is we need to integrate this kind of learnings. Otherwise, you might have the best schemes for the vegetable vendors. You might introduce mobile app for them and say you can sell it online, but you don't have a toilet for them. It really affects their families and their livelihood. It affects their health at the basic level, but it affects their children's education because they're going to earn less, because they're going to be ill. So as educators, as people engaging in this development sector, I think we need to be more mindful of this integrated kind of approach, because without that, I think we'll be working in silos. So even if Lyzon Friendship School or Sunbird is working on education, it cannot really be, just doing that. The responsibility is very, very high, right? So somewhat like like what many schemes are there for, there are many schemes for the street vendors, but there was no toilet, and everything else becomes meaningless. Now, the reason I'm giving these two very contrasting examples is because when we talk about access to traditional knowledge, one is it doesn't exist out there the way we want it, right? It's not there for us to simply read. It takes time. It's very scattered. No one has really documented it, and it's something that we can gain only inside by immersing ourselves in the community. And even people like myself and many people, I'm sure, being a part of the community itself, we are so clueless about many of this traditional knowledge, and it's always a struggle to really be in the scene to get access to this. There are attempts, for example, the Ministry of Ayush has been trying to say, oh, this traditional medicines, and they make a long list with their Indian names, and locals read it and they can't make sense out of it. There's no connection again, and yet they claim to be the repository of like traditional herbal medicines and things like that. So even attempts to document traditional knowledge or to capture them in their essence are also quite fraught with challenges. So there is no one single answer, Isha, and I don't know. I think the best way is to immerse yourself in the community and to ask a lot of questions, to be continuously curious why they're doing this, why they're doing that, why did they add this and this, or and just by, I think, keenly observing. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I think it has very well been answered.
Okay, so does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, Dinah raised their hand.
I have a small one. Can I go ahead? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, Dinah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, Golan, for this huge enlightenment that you have brought in for our teachers today. It's a direct question where I'm seeking like a simple answer, but I know this is going to be a huge challenge because we're now discussing a big topic. And thanks for highlighting all the branches that educator as a role, can impact the society. Thanks for that. So my question will be a little specific, and I want to ask it on, from the perspective of a teacher in the classroom. And when you say that we have to link our modern knowledge learning or earning knowledge should be linked to the traditional knowledge system or resources, what can a teacher actually take to their classrooms, and what type of techniques can a teacher use in the classroom to impart that appreciating the local resource is important? I mean, more simply, I can put it this way, that how to appreciate the local resource, because like you said, from your social experiment example, where a lot of students, about 60% of them have symbolically drawn the helicopter with the idea of leaving, and also Chorchandpur being on the border road, a lot of culture have actually been penetrated in the community, and there is a lot of cultural mix happening there with a lot of foreign culture, and even cultures of the Indian context as well. So when students and young people are already having a dream of moving out of the city or moving out of where they belong and trying to get understand what they have as a local resource, in that case, how do we teach someone, or what can a teacher take to the classroom to make students appreciate the local resources that are available? Is there any example that you can give? Just a simple one. Thank you. That's it.
Yeah, it's a simple but a really tough one. I think for teachers in a place like Lyzon Friendship School or any other school in this part of the world, I think we must be mindful of the exposure of the exposure of our students outside of the classroom. What are they exposed to? What drives their interest? Are they on Instagram? What are they watching on Instagram? What are they doing with their phones? Is their exposure also, let's say, limited to other avenues? Because their aspirations will be linked to something that they have seen, heard, right? Or somebody, or is it maybe they've really been there. For example, when we say aspirations of a huge number of students in Chorchandpur town is to leave this town, it also means that a lot of people have already left. And so there's something that they see that's aspirational. There's like they see their seniors in shopping malls and, going to, watching a PVR show or just attending college. Or it could be as simple as just escaping from your parents. I mean, you're a teenager, you're in a rebellious phase. So I think first is to understand the aspiration of the student, and then from there come backwards. So for instance, I don't know the exact setting in Lyzon, but for instance, if the students are really taken or blown away by the Korean wave, and then people in Chorchandpur, for example, they start eating Korean noodles, right? And they think it's cool to eat Korean noodles. It's very expensive and it's bad. It's processed food, but they start eating Korean noodles. Now, then for a teacher to inculcate a sense of value in the local resources, it might be a very interesting way of learning if we say, okay, what all did we eat at home in the last 1 week, right? The variety of food that they would mention, I think is something that no Korean or Western food can come close to. And where are they from? And then instill a sense of pride in it, right? And then say that, look, this has vitamin C. This is where I was talking about integrating science and traditional practice, because we, the community, we just eat because it's there. And we have been eating for generations. But now with scientific knowledge, we're able to say, look, if I eat this beans, it is this. If I eat this, it is good for this. So we lack that knowledge. We don't link it with the benefits that come with the food. We just know it when we stop eating that food. Just to digress, and I know we're way above 4, but for example, most of the parents must be working in the June field. The June field is now seen by the FAO as something that is sustainable agriculture practice, whereas the Indian governments have been trying to say that it's a primitive form of agriculture. Now they're saying the sustainable June is actually a very regenerative food cycle, because in a June you eat all kinds of food. And a study was done in Assam, where a few villages stopped doing June and they did commercial cropping. They only did chilies and ginger. They stopped June. They only did chili and ginger. Now, what did they do? The chili and ginger farmers would sell once a year, and they would get huge, price for it, good price for it, right? Chili and ginger. Commercial crops, and they would get really good money out of it. The Jhum guys' sustenance. But what they realized was that when the farmers who adopted a commercial cropping for chili and ginger, they started buying rice from outside. They started eating dal and aloo only. So dal, aloo rice, right? So they realized that, and this is, I think, a 6 or 4 year project. They realized that the farmers who started doing only a commercial crop for the chili and ginger and eating and the changing food habits, they start falling sick, right? But whereas the farmers who have been sticking on to Jhum and eating all kinds of very nutritious food, very diverse food, where they're not making so much money, but they're not falling sick. And the farmers started falling sick, and the money that they would get out of the commercial crop would be spent in Guwahati for their medical treatment. So what exactly is the point of you making lots of money from chili and ginger when all the money is going for your medical treatment for you and your family? So it's very difficult to convince people, but at the end of the day, they are traditional knowledge that has so much value. And coming back to the point, I think we must find a way how to make young people, students, our young friends proud or find value in the things around them. And maybe we can start with food, and then link that up and link that how that eating that kind of food is actually making them very strong, making them healthy. So instill a sense of pride, and I think if we're able to do that, we might be able to win some battles here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think, it's important to link the everyday experience with the syllabus content that students are supposed to learn. And that's a great step. Thanks for all the suggestions. Over to you, Prateep.
So in the interest of time, we'll not be taking any more questions from anyone. So just to get a recap for all of us, what was the real highlights for me is, one, how we as a community together can be
Pradeep, you are mute.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I was saying that in the interest of time, we'll not take any more questions. We'll wrap up the session for today. But before we do, I would just like to draw a few insights that I got from the session. Few being that how, as a community, we can be prepared for the change that's coming around in this line of villages, as being is going to become a trade center, and also how traditional knowledge and science can come together, and we can all prepare together for a better future, for be it just Churachandpur as a town or as whole of a district. And I guess something that really stood out and something that I really agree with you, Golan, is that how easily here people share things. And I guess that's something we should keep leveraging. I would like to end this by thanking Golan for taking out time. Thank you to all the teachers for taking out time on a Sunday. I guess seeing this, that the 18 of us really putting on the effort on a Sunday also would give us motivation to get through the coming week or the coming months or for a very long time. This gives us hope, all of us hope. Thank you to Pushkar and to Diana for organizing this. Thank you, Sir Lian, for the introduction today. And I hope in the coming time we can have other teachers also who can introduce. This is a great platform. Again, just on the closing, thanks to each and every one of you. Have a good evening. Enjoy your food. Have a good time at church. See you all tomorrow in school.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Thank you,
Golan.
everyone.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you, Pradeep. Bye-bye.
Now what will we do? We'll all stay.
Now you're in.
Party time.
Now, screenshot.
Hey, we should stay
Screenshot
in
I
the
already
screenshot.
taken, but in that all videos are off.
So
Okay, I'm taking one.
It's okay. It's okay.
Wait.
Take one more.
Yeah.
We can all
Sir
turn on
Minlun.
our videos, no?
Turn on.
How is Minlun attending the session? Minlun, are you driving and attending the session?
Wait.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay, I'm going to go because my phone's going to get switched off now.
Same here, same. 2%.
Take care. Bye
Oh, no.
bye.
Okay, bye guys. Bye. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Pushkar, bye bye.
Bye.